We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Chaf Beis Amud Beis in Mesechet Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 122b. The Gemara says, "Ma'ikra Yusa de Pundakis." What is so bad about an innkeeper? It implied in the Mishnah that if you had a woman that's an innkeeper, that is worse testimony than from a typical woman. And the Gemara answers, Amar Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana says, "Pundakis ovedes kol chavim hoisa." In that story in the Mishnah, the Pundakis, the innkeeper, actually was a non-Jew. Umesicha lefituma, and she was actually talking just in the course of conversation. It wasn't a situation really of testimony. In the course of conversation, she said this. Hoisa ze maklov ze tarmilo. She said, "This is his staff, and this is his bag." And here's the area where I buried him. And similarly, that's what Abba Breder of Menyumi Barchia taught. Pundakis ovedes kol chavim hoisa. Again, this was talking about a Pundakis, an innkeeper who she was an idol worshiper. Umesicha lefituma, in the course of conversation, she said, "Hoisa ze maklov ze tarmilo ze kevesh hakevartibo." This is his staff, this is his bag, and here's the area where I buried him. And the Gemara says, 1 second, but in the story in the Mishnah, they say to her, "Where's our friend?" So that's not the course of regular conversation. She's actually answering a direct question. And the Gemara answers, no, Kevan de Chazisinu Bachia. What happened was as follows. They saw that she was crying. So Amrullah, so then they said to her, so where's our friend? And then Amrulahem, she said to them, Meis, he died, Ukvartiv, and I buried him. So that's considered in the course of conversation. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, there was once a story of a certain person who came to testify about a particular woman in front of Rabbi Tarfon. Amar lo, he said to him, how do you know, in terms of this woman, that she's allowed to remarry? How do you know this testimony? So he said, the story goes as follows. I and he, meaning her husband, we were walking on the road, and some troops, they chased after us. So he tore a branch off an olive tree, and he used that, he used that almost like a weapon in order to push the soldiers back. Amarti lo, so I said to him, Aryeh, I said, lion, yasher kochacha, you should have great strength. Amar li, so he said to me, Minayin ata yodea, Aryeh shemi, how do you know my name is Aryeh? Kach koran osi be'iri, that's actually what they call me in my city. They call me Yochanan b'Rebbe Yonasan Aryeh, they say that I'm called Yochanan b'Rebbe Yonasan, the lion, to mi Chvar Shechya, from Chvar Shechya. L'yomim, then some days passed, Cholav Ameis, he actually got sick and he died. V'hesi Rabbi Tarfon es ishto, and Rabbi Tarfon, he heard this account, he heard this testimony, and based on this testimony, he allowed this individual's wife to remarry. And the Gemara now asks, Rabbi Tarfon lo boy drisha v'chakira, 1 second, does Rabbi Tarfon not require questioning the witness? Don't you have to have some kind of investigation and a set of questions? But we learned in a brayso, so ma'isa bo demachad shabol lefnei Rabbi Tarfon. There was a story with a particular man who came before Rabbi Tarfon. L'hored eidos isha, again the same thing, to testify, to allow a woman to remarry. Amar lo, he said to him, B'ni heichata yodea eidos zu, my son, how do you know this testimony? Amar li, he said to me, Anivu ayinu holchim baderech, I and he, we were walking on the road. Again the same story, v'radav acharenu gayis, and troops came chasing after us, v'nisla, b'yichor ta'inu, pashcho v'hechzer sagayis lachorav, and he hung himself by this branch of the fig tree, and he took off the branch, he tore it off, and he stored and he scared the troops backwards. Amarti lo, I said to him, Yasher kochacho Aryeh, I said, Yasher koyach lion. Amar li, he said to me, Yofech yivanta l'shmi. So a slightly different version, he said, that's actually my name. Shekach koran osi be'iri, Yochanan ben Yonasan Aryeh di michvar Shechya. That's what they call me in my city, Yochanan ben Yonasan, the lion of Kfar Shechya. L'yomim cholav amei, some days passed, and he got sick and he died. Amar lo, he said to him, Lo kach amarta li Yochanan ben Yonasan di michvar Shechya Aryeh. So then he asked me the following, he interrogated me about my testimony, and he said, 1 second, didn't you tell me that his name was Yochanan ben Yonasan from Kfar Shechya, which is known as lion? Amar le, so he said to him, no, that's not what I said. Elakach amarti, the way I phrased it was as follows. Elakach amarti loch, here's what I said to you. Yochanan ben Yonasan Aryeh. It's Yochanan ben Yonasan the lion, putting the word Aryeh after Yochanan ben Yonasan, again, as a name of this individual, Dimi Kfar Shechya, from Kfar Shechya. And again, in this version of the story, he asked him questions 2 or 3 times. He was investigating, interrogating. And everything that he said matched up. And then Rabbi Tarfon allowed his wife to remarry. So the point is that in this version of the story, Rabbi Tarfon required Drisha v'Chakira. And so to that the Gemara says Tanoi, it's actually a machlokes Tanoim whether Drisha v'Chakira is required. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brayso, Ein Bodkin Eidei Noshim B'Drisha v'Chakira Divrei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva says we don't investigate the witnesses when it comes to allowing women to remarry with Drisha v'Chakira. Rabbi Tarfon Omer Bodkin, Rabbi Tarfon says, in this version Rabbi Tarfon says, yes, we do investigate, we do require Drisha v'Chakira. And the Gemara explains v'kamiflagi b'd Rabbi Chanina, and they're actually arguing about the statement of Rabbi Chanina. The Amar Rabbi Chanina, because Rabbi Chanina says Dvar Torah echad dinei mamanis v'echad dinei nefashos, on a doraisa level, whether you're talking about monetary issues or life and death issues, but Drisha v'Chakira, you should always be doing Drisha v'Chakira of the witnesses. Shenemar, like the pasuk says, Mishpat echad yilachem. It's all one set of justice. In other words, the cases have to be dealt with in the same fashion. Now, why do they say that dinei mamonos do not require drisha v'chakira? And in that manner, you don't close the door in front of the borrowers. In other words, people are not going to lend money if every time they need to collect, you need to have drisha v'chakira of the witnesses. So therefore, to encourage people to lend money, so therefore we don't require drisha v'chakira by dinei mamonos. And the Gemara says, so what exactly are they arguing about over here? What is the machlokas? Mar savar kevan deika ksuba. One holds that since when you're dealing with allowing the woman to remarry, there's an issue of the ksuba, which is monetary. Ksuba lemishkal, there's a ksuba that will be collected. Kedine mamanis dummy, so we treat this like dine mamanis, and we say you don't need drisha v'chakira. Umar savar, and the other master says, kevan de kasharina neishas ish lialma, since in this case we're actually allowing a married woman to now marry others, kedine nefashos dummy, that's already considered like dinei nefashos. And Rashi over here explains, Lokach Amarta li Yochanan ben Yonasan, the point over here Rashi says is Doresh v'choker, he was investigating Haya, Ulai Afoch es Devar, maybe he'll switch around his words, Lokach Amarta li d'michvar Shichya Aryeh, Shakvar Haya Korn Aryeh, didn't you say that the village was called Aryeh? Velo, so not the person. These were the kinds of questions that he was asking. Drishas bedikos ki agavna lechaven es Devarav, again, Drisha means these kind of investigations, V'chakira means be'eza yom of ve'eza shah, that means in what day, what hour, that's what a chakira is. So those are the different kinds of questions that you ask. And Rashi continues, Mishpar echad yiyah lachem v'kevan de'eshkechan dechsib b'dinei nefashos v'darashta v'chakarta v'gomer. By dinei nefashos, it says in the pasuk the idea of drisha v'chakira. Hu adin l'dinei mamanis. Really, that should be true by dinei mamanis also, because again, it's all mishpat echad. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Elazar says in the name of Rabbi Chanina, Talmidei Chachamim marbim shalom ba'olam, Talmidei Chachamim, they increase peace in the world. Shenema, like the pasuk says, V'chol banayich limudei Hashem v'rav shalom banayich. Again, the idea is Rav Shalom, there's an increase of peace. Hadron alocha isha basro slikola Mesechet Yevamos. This is the conclusion of the 16th parak of Mesechet Yevamos and the conclusion of Mesechet Yevamos. If you're enjoying this channel and these videos, please like, share, and subscribe. And please take a look at the description box below to see how you can support this channel. And we will continue in the next video with Mesechet Ksubis.